My name is Susan Kabuli. I am a clinical psychologist and I have a private practice in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I also teach courses that integrate mental health with the Christian faith. And I have recently self-published a book called God's Sabbath, Time of Rest. I want to introduce a course that I'm offering in March called The Practice of the Presence of God Revisited. Like the Christian classic of Brother Lawrence, we will be looking at God's presence in our lives, but our understanding or focus of God's presence in our lives will be in light of God's revelation of himself and of his relationship to us in his holy Sabbath rest. When I speak of the Sabbath, I am not referring to God's commandment to Israel in the fourth commandment to keep the Sabbath holy by resting from her work for one day. What I am referring to is God's rest from his work. God completed his creation in the beginning of Scripture, and he rested from his completed creation. And we understand in the New Testament that God completes his redemption in his Messiah, Jesus, and he rests from his work of redemption for us. So why would I be able to teach a course on rest, on God's rest? What's the big deal with rest? It seems like a simple concept, and yet it is something that is so difficult, really impossible for us to enter into God's rest. When we speak of God's rest, it is entirely other from our rest because it is holy. And so we will be looking in the course about what that means, what God's holy rest means, how he has revealed the nature of his holy rest to us, and how in truth, I believe that the revelation of his rest for us is his full grace to us that shows his way for us to be in relationship with a holy God. So a lot of the course is going to be looking at the nature of God's holy rest, as well as how can we enter into it. That also will take up a good bit of the course subject matter because, again, as simple as the concept of rest is, and who wouldn't want to enter God's rest, it is impossible for us to enter God's rest on our own. Again, because it is holy and we are not holy. How do we enter God's holy rest? So there's a lot of resistance in us to God's rest. We struggle with the nature of God's rest and what needs to change in us in order for us to be able to enter into his rest. There's a lot of resistance, a lot of opposition, a lot of striving, working in reaction to God's rest. And so we will be looking at psychological techniques, concepts that help us understand what that resistance is about, that striving with God, and how we can understand and accept God's way of bringing us into his perfect and good rest for us in Jesus. If you have any questions on this course, any more questions, there is more material on the course subject in the webpage of this course, as well as how to contact me and how to register. Thanks for listening.